Channel. No place on Earth has better weather. The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
Well, this tropical update is sponsored by Honda Generators, power when you need it. Our top story, Hurricane Linda, that is in the Pacific, and we continue to follow Hurricane Linda at 2 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Here are the latest stats. 18.9 north, 111.2 west. That is 300 miles south-southwest of Cabo San Lucas, which is located extreme southern Baja, California. Top sustained winds an incredible 185 miles per hour, and this hurricane is making its way steadily today northwest at 9 miles per hour. First of all, how do we ascertain 185 miles per hour? This time around, it's by estimation, and we can do that by looking at satellite photographs, and that is the way that we estimate how strong a hurricane is, just looking at the type of hurricanes, because hurricanes essentially change shape a little bit, and there are certain characteristics which show stronger hurricanes. And one of those is that this eye, which is embedded toward the central dense overcast, or what we call the CDO, once it is in the center there, that is telling us that we have a very powerful hurricane. And today this hurricane made its way just past the island of Socorro, largely uninhabited island, thankfully, off the coast of Mexico. Now, if you're wondering, for all interests along the Mexican coast, it should stay offshore. Baja, California, we believe it's going to stay offshore for a good while as the hurricane continues to steadily make its way to the northwest. Now, where does this hurricane go beyond this? It is a little bit more of a question. We believe, looking at all the official hurricane forecasts and such, and all these different computer forecasts, is that it takes it northwest for about 3 days, and then at the end of the forecast it gets a little bit tougher. Essentially what we see here is a large trough of low pressure diving down along the coast. Now, this should change the winds over to the southwest, so we believe that there's a possibility beyond around 3 days that there could be a little bit of a hook up towards Southern California, maybe into northern Baja. Official forecasts also show it possibly staying off the Southern California coast. So essentially we have lots of thought here exactly what's going on. What will happen, though, is that as this hurricane makes its way out over cooler and cooler water, it is gradually going to lose its strength. So worst case scenario, even if it did make it up to Southern California as a hurricane, it would be very minimal, a minimal hurricane or a tropical storm, and it may just stay off the coast. So we can't say exactly what is going to happen yet. Surely, it is an extremely rare situation to find even a tropical storm in Southern California. The last time that happened was 1939, so the odds are against this hurricane making its way to the north and hooking, but we have a very unique situation with a very strong trough of low pressure and a very strong hurricane. So those are the pieces of the puzzle coming together. Still several days to watch this hurricane as it parallels Baja, California. This feature here is now Tropical Storm John. Top sustained winds 50 miles per hour and is expected to strengthen. We also see this feature here, Olivia. Top sustained winds now down to 130 miles per hour as it continues its westward track over toward the extreme western areas of the Pacific. Here's our high-level winds in the Atlantic. We see generally a confused pattern here where we have troughs of low pressure, we have ridges of high pressure, but one thing that we do find is that there's very little in the way of tropical weather activity. Into the Gulf of Mexico, a few showers, a few storms, no chance of development here. Also, no chance of development off the East Atlantic seaboard. Here's the latest stats on Tropical Storm Erika, 5 p.m. advisory, Atlantic Standard Time. Top sustained winds now 60 miles per hour. We believe by this time tomorrow, Erika will have completed the transformation into an extratropical system as it is waving hello to Europe, heading that way over a few days.
The Weather Channel. No place on Earth has better weather.
This tropical update is brought to you by Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. When it comes to home improvement, Lowe's knows. All right, here's the latest on Hurricane Linda. Still an extremely powerful Category 5 hurricane. They don't get any stronger than this, folks. And this, supposedly, is the strongest hurricane ever in the eastern Pacific. And at those wind speeds and the pressure estimated to be around 900 millibars, it's one of the strongest ever, either in the Atlantic or the Pacific. I think the only one that beats it pressure-wise, and we don't know for sure because there has been no reconnaissance aircraft in there to check it out, and we did not get any readings as this hurricane passed very close to the island of Socorro. But again, the only hurricane in the Atlantic or the East Pacific that's ever had pressure lower would be Hurricane Gilbert back in 1988. Moving parallel to the coast of Mexico right now. That is good news because it's going to keep the most intense winds well offshore and the very heavy rain, although we are getting some bands starting to pull on up into La Paz and Cabo San Lucas, and maybe some squally weather there. But the real intense wind field is, of course, around our center, what we call the central dense overcast. And when you look at a satellite picture like this, and this is about as intense as you're going to see a hurricane, obviously, look how small the eye is. When you get an eye that's wrapped up that tightly, that small, on a satellite image, that is an indication of intensity. And also where that eye is embedded within this central dense overcast, this orange and red shaded area that surrounds the eye. And this one is embedded right in the middle. It's like a big donut with a very small center. That is what you look for a very intense hurricane. And on an infrared satellite picture, you would look for a lot of red, deep red, to be wrapped around the center. Last night, that whole central dense overcast was deep red. Tonight, not quite so much. So maybe just a little bit of an indication of weakening, but if it is, it's very subtle. This is still a very dangerous hurricane. There are coastal flood warnings up because of the threat of high surf. Of course, it's radiating out in all directions now from this extremely intense hurricane. So along the Mexican coast and across the Baja Peninsula from Punta Eugenia all the way down to Cabo San Lucas. And again, I wouldn't be surprised at all that these get extended all the way up into the coast of Southern California as we head over the weekend. It's almost a certainty, in fact it is a certainty, that we're going to get some higher southerly swell here along the coast of Southern California and even Central California over the weekend and on into early next week. But the real question here is, where does this hurricane go as we head on through the next 3, 4, 5 days? The key really is this trough, which is digging into the north on the water vapor here. As this swings around and digs off the coast, that could turn the hurricane more north and maybe even eventually northeasterly. Where it makes that turn, will it be into the Baja? Will it be here into Southern California? That remains to be seen. What we are confident of is that it's not going to come in, of course, at this strength. The waters are cooler here. It is going to weaken a bit. It probably will get sheared by some of the winds from this trough. However, it is not out of the question that it could come in as a tropical storm. Maybe. If it does. That's not unprecedented. Back in September of 1939, a tropical storm did hit Southern California between San Diego and LA, and there were 45 fatalities. We think mainly of folks that were in boats offshore. So there is Linda, something we'll have to watch very closely down the road as it heads farther north. This is a brand new tropical depression. I believe it's 15E. Okay, and it's forecast in the next day or two to slowly become a tropical storm. But right now it's really pretty much out in the middle of nowhere. This is David. This is a brand new tropical storm. And this is Oliva, still a typhoon, which is expected to weaken but get pretty close to the southern coast of Japan. Quickly, I wanted to talk about Tropical Storm Erika, which is rapidly moving out into the central Atlantic at 14 miles an hour, winds at 50, losing its tropical characteristics here. Still getting a little convection near the center, but not affecting anybody but shipping lanes. As a non-tropical system, it may eventually impact parts of Europe.